Hi, I'm Melissa, and I would like to speak with you a little bit today about tapping, which is also called the Emotional Freedom Technique, or EFT. Now, tapping is just a small portion of the energy work that we do. There is a much, much larger picture in healing the body. Quite often it is not a simple fix, and that makes perfect sense because if it was a simple fix, we would all be better by now. Everybody would be healthy, nobody would be struggling. So this is the portion that has to do with your hormones, all right? And we have a lot of tapping techniques that are free on our website and that are on YouTube. And I would love to encourage you to take a look at those and practice them and check them out on yourself. And so what I really want to do is I do want to teach you a little bit about tapping, but first I want to share a story. So I received this phone call that was really, really upsetting, and I immediately jumped into panic mode when I heard it, and I started shaking, and my voice got really loud, and I had a really difficult time being able to control myself. And I found myself ready to start crying and ready to jump more into defensive mode as opposed to being able to have a responsible, mature conversation. And so as I'm on the phone, I went through a quick tapping technique that I just made up on the spot. And there are some amazing ways that the more and more that you get familiar with tapping, the more that you can make up your own videos also. And so I made one up on the spot, and I went through all the different spots 3 or 4 times, and around the 3rd time I stopped shaking, and around the 4th time my voice came down. And once I completed it, I was able to have a normal conversation. So the question is, why? Like, what in the world does tapping really do? Okay, so that's what I want to talk to you about today. Why we have these reactions to tapping, and why do we need it in the first place? Okay, so first of all, your life is a creation of your thoughts. Automatic thoughts steer the direction of your results. And those thoughts begin with your core beliefs about yourself. This all makes sense, right? And there's a much bigger picture here, and I just want you to understand to not skip out on the much bigger picture and only do the tapping. But also, don't skip the tapping. This is a very integral part in balancing the body back out. So all of this makes perfect sense, but what happens when a conflict occurs? When a trigger immediately puts you back into a dangerous place and you feel rejected or victimized. What can we actively do while deep in the trenches of self-sabotage? You may recognize that you are presented with a choice, and feeling miserable seems awfully natural and comfortable. In this conflict, the body goes into an automatic protection mode. It is called the fight or flight autonomic response system. It is a primitive survival instinct where the brain activates the sympathetic nervous system, changing how your body works. When a threat is perceived, the autonomic nervous system is activated, and the sympathetic nervous system pumps adrenaline, preparing the body to fight or flight. This is a primitive automatic response that happens very quickly. Most of us are unaware it is even occurring within our body until we start to feel that rush of adrenaline or the cortisol and the stress levels. Our rational mind becomes disengaged, and you can become hyper-focused upon immediate short-term survival. The trouble with this automatic response is, in our normal daily lives, we can become triggered very easy, and the stress hormones are not released from our system or balanced out. So let me just give another quick little example. If you have a test, if you're really stressed out, if you have a lot of pressure on you and you don't release all of these extra cortisol hormones that your body is naturally releasing to assist you in being able to meet all of the demands that are being placed on you, then let's say that you're constantly creating more and more cortisol each day, and by the end of the week, all it takes is somebody coming up to you and making a moderately annoying comment, and all of a sudden you blow up and you don't know why, right? And then you kind of start to kind of feel like you're having an emotional breakdown. And so this can happen. There's other ways that this can play out, but the important part is that we need to be able to purge these survival chemicals from our bodies, which tell our primitive bodies that we are now safe by sending a signal to the cognitive brain. Okay, That was a very important statement. I hope you guys understood that. I'm going to go over it again, and I'm going to go back just a little bit. So the trouble with this automatic response is in our normal daily lives, we become triggered very, very easily. And the stress hormones may not be released from your system or balanced out. Quite often, we don't release these hormones. Unless you go running every single day, or unless you are able to, let's say you're being chased by a bear in the woods and your body produces all this adrenaline, and you go running through the woods and you burn off all of this extra adrenaline. But we just get stressed on a regular basis. We get a ton of pressure, and a ton of weight is being thrown at us on a regular basis. So purging these survival chemicals from our bodies tells our primitive brain that we are now safe by sending a signal to the cognitive brain. Okay, so if discharged safely, we can feel empowered and more able to handle the situation in the future while feeling secure. But if we do not discharge the trauma and the excess stress hormones, such as cortisol or adrenaline, the primitive brain will freeze in the event in the system. Okay, or freeze the event in your system. Then anything in the future that reminds us of the original event can trigger further responses immediately. So in this day and age, we are triggered all the time, and the body is constantly in this fight or flight response. And we can recognize how this happens when let's say that you had an argument with your spouse 10 years ago and it's something that has happened a long time ago, but it was very emotionally draining on you, and then all of a sudden something reminds you of that argument, and you're right there. All of the adrenaline's coming in, all of your hormones are flooding and going crazy, and you're all worked up and upset about something that happened 10 years ago. You're not there anymore. You're not in danger anymore, but your body responds as though it is and releases all of those hormones again. And so when we still have those negative energies within our body and we have not healed, we have not released those extra hormones, we have not balanced out our hormones in our system, we haven't released the trauma of the event, we haven't healed, we haven't removed those negative cords, those unhealthy connections, however the energy negatively influenced you, whether or not your body created toxins or infections, or if you are being plagued just by depression and you're sad all the time and that energy is holding you back, that negative energy is holding you back. All of this ties together, and if we do just the tapping, then we're missing out on the cause. And if we do just the cause and we don't work on balancing out the hormones, then we're missing out on the other half too. So the tapping is incredibly critical. So tapping does assist in balancing out these hormones and chemicals by releasing those hormones from the body in the same manner that they were triggered to produce these hormones. The glands were producing these hormones. So a specific emotion, and this is the best part about this, is that emotions trigger your glands to produce these hormones. And we know this is true because if you're incredibly stressed out, you can end up with ulcers, just like that. And if you're stressed out, you can have an anxiety attack. There are so many different ways that our bodies respond to our emotional state. And that's what we work on. We work on recognizing that these automatic emotional responses are ones that we can't control, right? If you have an apple on a tree, so let's say you have a fruit tree in the backyard and the apples are rotten, you're not going to blame the apple and try to say, oh, here's a beautiful, perfectly green, not rotten, very healthy apple, and it's like, oh, no, it's not. Just because we say it is doesn't mean that it's healthy. And so hiding it and pretending that something is what it isn't is not true healing. If we would like to really heal, we need to be honest with ourselves. We need to truly heal the root system, which is where we dive into the fear base. We dive into our core belief system, and we work on true healing at the core. And in doing so, then we work on healthier patterns so that when we have a automatic response, and like I said, this is automatic. When we have an automatic response, it's not going to be so unhealthy, so negative, so draining on your system. And this is how we work with the past, present, and the future. All right. And so with tapping, I'll get back to my point. I can go off on tangents pretty bad. I apologize. So when we tap on these certain pressure points, right, and we do it in a very specific order relating to the energy flow of the meridians. Okay, so your meridian happens to be, well, actually, let me take that from a different angle. You have pressure points, right? If you have an acupressure done, these pressure points are where your energy flow is, the way the energy flow is moving. And so your meridian happens to be your main energy flow sources. And so when the hormone imbalance occurred in the first place, it was due to some very strong unhealthy emotions, right? Panic or stress or anxiety, or not feeling good enough, or hating yourself, looking in the mirror and thinking, oh my gosh, nobody wants to look at that. That is, oh, I hate the way I look. Or I'm not good enough, or somebody else is so much better. All of these thoughts, all of these emotions that are going through our mind are creating this hormonal imbalance. It is creating this negativity, and then your body is going to store it in your body quite often into fat cells. So believe it or not, the more that we love our fat, the more that our body doesn't need to continue producing it, because we're offering our bodies love. And this is something that we all struggle with. Self-love is one of the most difficult topics to work on. So anyhow, we'll get back to tapping. So when we tap on these pressure points while saying something incredibly positive to counteract the negative response that we had previously, then we are communicating with the glands in the body to produce, reduce, or balance out the hormonal levels. All right, so let's say you have way too much cortisol and way too little estrogen, right? And so the idea of saying certain things, believing certain things, positive self-talk, we're going to be saying essentially the opposite of what created that initial stress point. So if you're really having a hard time at work, you feel like you're not good enough, you can't make this deadline, we're going to say the opposite. Right? I can do it. I am good enough. I am smart enough. I am strong enough. And so the order that we do it is that we start off with it's pretty simple when we begin, where we basically say, even though, and then we give a list of the complaints, the difficult things that we don't feel like we're able to do. And then we finish it with, I still love myself. And then we go through one whole round where we essentially talk about all of the emotions that we're experiencing, and then we work through them. And so we can go through them quite many times. In fact, a lot of the training you only have to go through it 3 times, but I like to go through it until I really feel better inside. And so sometimes that's 3 times, sometimes that's 8 times through. However many times that you need to go, you just keep going and tapping those spots. And in fact, when I had a disagreement with my husband a few weeks back, and immediately the first thing he did was he came over and he helped me to go through a meditation, and we went through these pressure points as he was saying incredibly positive, uplifting affirmations and self-talk, and helping me through my emotions. And by the time we'd gone through it a handful of times, we were both laughing. And here, before that, I was feeling really horrible about myself. And so this works, and it's an amazing opportunity to have. It's kind of like my ER 911. All right, we can work on our past hormones, but it takes a lot more work. We have to deal with the energy. We have to deal with everything that we've stored. We have to deal with assisting the body and releasing the storage of this energy. And so when we have like an immediate situation right in front of us, we can go through this tapping technique. If you're stressed out in the car, let's say you're really frustrated at another driver, you can go through a tapping technique to help yourself calm down. If you're really anxious about a test, you can go through a tapping technique to help you calm down. So it really is in the moment, helping you to rebalance yourself so that you don't need nearly as much cleanup later on. All right? So when the imbalance began with an emotional event, we counteract this imbalance by communicating with the gland that is over or under producing the hormones by stimulating it with positive words or thoughts directly linked to the imbalance while tapping on the pressure points. So this is the important thing I wanted to teach you about tapping, and I really like to encourage you to go through some of our tapping techniques and try them for yourself. and see how they assist you in feeling a little bit better in the moment. If you're really depressed, and I don't have a video on this, I love Brad Yates. And if you look up YouTube, Brad Yates, he's one of my favorite that I like to tap along with. And go through our site too. And if you would see one that really strikes with you, go for it. And if you would like to change it yourself and make your own video, I highly recommend that you do that. And then it can be something that is very personalized for just you. And if you have an appointment with us, I can also give you a very personalized tapping video for exactly what you're going through to assist you in healing in the moment. All right, so I appreciate you for listening and for educating yourself and looking to better yourself and to help you experience a better result. And, we're always told that if you want a different result, you need to actually change your actions. If you continue doing the same thing over and over expecting a different result, it's not going to happen. And so as we change what we're doing, we can experience a different result. And so I'm really proud of you for taking that effort and making some changes in your life and looking for ways to better yourself and your experiences and your outcome. So, all right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.